There are many times I would think about ending things, straight up, straightforward. What's the point after all if we are just material matter and that's it? If that's really the case, nothing truly matters anyways. This thought, as dark as it might be, is one of the most important thoughts we can have as humans. My experience with my faith is like a tsunami. I was raised strongly with God. I wasn't indoctrinated, as some atheists would like to say. It was my own free choice. I had a decent amount of critical exposure when I was young. As I got older, my tsunami got weaker, and I found myself a quiet atheist. I didn't speak out against God, but I didn't believe in God either. Yet in the end, the water does pull back into the calm ocean, which is the current state of my faith. It's calm, vast, and secure, but every tsunami has a cause. When I was younger, I feel like that faith was just a lot more easy coming, right? It was easy to have faith when you were a child. And when I was growing up, I would go and pray. I would go pray in the hallway or go pray in an empty room, kind of like how Christ talks about it in the Gospels. Go find the room and close the door and pray in secret. And that's something I would do a lot when I was a kid. I used to pray for wisdom, like wisdom, like how Solomon had wisdom, And looking back at that, I feel like it was a beautiful experience because those prayers were like the most genuine prayers out of my entire life that I remember having to this day. And I think it's because of like the heartfelt connection that you have when you're a kid and you pray. Now, my faith, as I said, was completely my own choice. It was presented to me. The first time I was really presented my faith was in my Bible study. When I was 6 years old, I was in Bible study with these Jehovah's Witnesses that would come to the house. The Jehovah's Witnesses would teach me and my family about the overall biblical stories. So I'm still very familiar with them. I was always familiar with them growing up. But of course, if you're getting taught by the Jehovah's Witnesses, you're going to be taught that Jesus is not God. So to me, growing up for 18 years of my life, I always thought Jesus was a prophet. I never really thought that he was God. I never thought he was divine in that sense because they don't really teach you he is divine, like at least explicitly. It would be more of an implicit teaching. The Bible study was completely my free choice. I could choose to participate. I could choose to withdraw. It was completely up to me, and I very much appreciate that because my mom wanted me to think for myself as a young kid. Now, I also had an evangelical grandmother, and my grandmother would go and buy me these like children's Bible stories, and I would go and read them, like, David and Goliath, because my name's David. So it's easy for me to read that and relate to it because it's like a similarity, I was named after him. So reading about the person I was named after was something I just always like to enjoy. My mother would go and buy me these National Geographic astronomy books. So I would go and study astronomy, the space and stars and science at the same time and, come back home and have Bible study. I was doing this SAT book my mom got me, all this math and everything. Now for me, I'm really happy I had that whole experience growing up because it taught me a whole bunch of different avenues when I was younger. I had an exposure to science, an exposure to religion, an exposure to philosophy, to a lot of different things. And so for me, I never saw them as opposing viewpoints like a lot of other people do. By the time I was a teenager, I started to struggle between worldly ambition and godly ambition. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, like everybody else when they're that age. I wanted to be successful, rich, influential, have all the money, the woman, the power. But at the same time, I deeply believed in God. So all those things felt wrong, and in the sense that they are wrong. So I was at a crossroads, essentially. What am I going to do with my life? I need to figure this out. Who am I? I didn't know even who I was. I had a lust for influence. I wanted people to know me. I had the lust for money. I wanted to accumulate all the money and be like a businessman. I bought my first financial books were like Think and Grow Rich and all these other ones that everybody reads, like, The Richest Man in Babylon. I have them on my bookshelf over there. For me, a big influence also in my teenage years was I would look around and I saw all these Christians living bad lives. And I think part of it was definitely me being a little bit too judgmental, but I think a big gravity is, you go see the Muslims and the perception is that they're much holier than we are, right? As Christians, it's like, okay, they don't do any of these things, they don't do any of these things, they don't do any of these things, which a lot of that's not true. But for Christians, it's like a lot more overtly out there that Christians are doing all these other things. Now, looking back at that, I feel like I was just judgmental. a lot of the times, and maybe I was judging too harshly because me myself, I'm going through all these things, and what somebody else is doing has nothing to do with what I'm doing, and they have no correlation whatsoever. One of the other things I was struggling with was, who wrote the Gospels? This was a stumbling block for me. This was an issue for me when I was researching things and, in my teenage years and really diving into it. The atheists will tell you, some of the scholars will tell you that we don't know who wrote them. Now, there's reasons for this, and this video is not about that. But this was something I was struggling with when I was younger, because I was like, if we don't even know who wrote the Gospels, how can we really trust what Jesus himself said? Now, today I have a better understanding of all the scholarly things and everything like that. But when I was younger, it was like I'm reading it for the first time. And when you're reading something like that for the first time, it's like, how are you supposed to articulate and take that in? I don't even know what it meant when I read it the first time, as far as why are we saying this? How do we come to this conclusion? What does it even mean? How would we even know? Now I have a better grasp on that, but back then it was a really hard pill to swallow to be confronted with that for the first time. One of the other challenges I had when I was a teenager was Yahweh a stolen God that the Jews just borrowed or, appropriated? Or is it emerged from the Canaanite pantheon? Is El Elyon, where they merged into Yahweh? Now, of course, today I know that Yahweh is a unique deity. The God of the Jews is unique from the God of the Canaanites. But back then, reading it for the first time, and during that time when I was younger, that was like the main theory that was floating around. But, theories change every couple of years. For me, those were the main things I was struggling with when I was a teenager. Now, as I got older, I got I got a Muslim girlfriend, and it was a very interesting experience because we were together and she was telling me about Islam. She was very adamant about it. She was very passionate about it. Now, I'm a Christian at this point. I'm barely even a Christian, not really a Christian. I don't really believe in it, but I know a lot about it. But my heart in the very back is like still for Christ. So she's telling me about this. I don't believe in Islam. I never believed in Islam. But, I'm like, you know what? Okay, you're telling me about this. I'm going to go look into it, and I'll tell you what. If it's true, I will convert. So I go and study Islam. I spend a lot of time going through. I have 3 Qurans over there. I go read the Surahs by Ibn Ishaq. I go study all the Tasfir and everything out there. And me and her are debating. She takes me to one of these scholars who's, I believe, a Salafi. And we were debating about things. And it's very clear that I won that debate. A lot of the stuff that Muslims bring up just are not true, not even historically true. And theologically, they're just very bare compared to Christianity, which is just so much rich. That experience got me into studying the history of the church. The church history is very, very vast. For most Christians, they think that, the Bible ends at the book of Revelations, and then that's it up until today, your current life that you're living. But this can't be further from the truth. Church history is so rich and full of things, and I'm starting to study it, and I could come to see and understand why we believe the things that we believe beyond just, the Gospels or Paul's epistles or the book of Revelation. It goes further down, the blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church. So for me, I'm doing this deep dive, studying into Islam, studying into Christianity, studying the church history, because I'm having these debates and I feel like I should know what I'm talking about if I'm going to be talking about it. I'm like 2021, and am I like a crossroads? Should I be Catholic? Should I be Orthodox? I'm already a Trinitarian, but I don't know what to be. After studying church history, those are like the 2 choices I felt have the most authenticity to them. So that's where I was, and I decided to pray. I didn't pray to God in any type of conceptualization that I had of him beforehand in any type of denomination or anything. But I prayed to God like Abraham when he was praying, just for the truth, just to God in general. Some of the other things I learned in my journey was refinement through suffering. Suffering is a thing that a lot of people have a problem with. For me, going through a lot of the hard times, I didn't talk about them in this video, but throughout this journey that I'm talking about, I went through a lot of hard times. And throughout my harder times in my adult phase, those were the times that I really lived theology as the Orthodox say, and that's when I saw purification through suffering. Those things were necessary for my salvation, and I'll probably talk about that in one of my future videos that I make. Another thing I learned was the impact of the gospel on history. Researching things and reading about things, it's very clear and evident that the gospel message and the life of Jesus Christ had a profound effect on human history and Western civilization. It's very clear that everywhere the gospel touches, it transforms society and transfigures it. The beauty of Christian theology is something else I came to appreciate so deeply after becoming Orthodox especially. It's like, oh my gosh, the theology is just so much more deeper than it ever was, ever taught to me or exposed to me when I was in my Protestant circles or Jehovah's Witness circles or any circle ever before. It's like I became Orthodox, and the beauty of our theology is very clear compared to, let's say, Islam, for example. Is very simplistic. It's very just like straightforward, but straightforward in a really negative way. Sometimes they try to talk about it like it's a good thing. It's not a good thing. The theology in Christianity is as if God actually exists. The beauty of the gospel, God becoming man to come and meet his creation, to come and live among us, to restore humanity to him, to reconcile it to him. For us to see God live the lives that we are supposed to live and suffer for it is one of the deepest things I could possibly ever think of. No other God that I've ever read does this, and no other God ever existed in a tangible sense to have done this, right? Like how Jesus Christ has done. And when you think about the compassion that Christ displays in the Gospels, it's just knowing that he's fully God and having this type of humility, this type of compassion to come and enter into creation with us and, wash his disciples' feet or do things the way that he did things. It's just, to be crucified it's the deepest message of love that can ever be given, the deepest sense of divine truth. And that's where I get to Christ as the Logos, as the universal divine truth. And that's another thing. The theology is so deep. It's like I could spend all day talking about it, even though I'm so nervous in front of this camera. Don't get me wrong. It's like my second full video I'm shooting. And even so, my first one was like introductory video. The theology behind it is just so full and so beautiful. And it makes me appreciate God so much more than I did before when I was younger. In a sense, it's like when I was younger, my faith was more, I would say, straightforward, more easier to grapple with. But now it's a lot more harder to grapple with. But it's like I appreciate the depth of it. I walk outside and I feel just the love. I feel alive. I feel like I'm grateful to be here. And it's a miracle that we're even here in the first place, whether you believe in God or not. I think that we could both agree that for us to be here is a miracle. And we should take advantage of every day that we have here on earth and do the best that we can with it. Do the best for ourselves and for others that we meet every single day. Don't get me wrong. I understand the atheist position. I was once there. I can understand how this might not make sense to a lot of atheists who may be watching, and that's okay. For me, a lot of things didn't make sense either. Until I lived it, I tried it, I wrestled with it, and I think that's part of the journey that everybody goes through. This video is in no way meant to be an argument for Christianity. This is just a summary of my personal journey and the things that have impacted me along the way. Even though one would say I was a Christian for most of my life, I don't truly consider myself to be a Christian until I became Orthodox. When I got baptized into Orthodoxy is when I truly started to understand what it means to be a Christian, what it means to live as one, and God willing, what it means to die as one. I'll cover some Orthodox stuff in the next few videos I have planned, but until then, God bless.